We're going to go ahead and jump into 8.5 and we're going to go back to that factoring. So we're undoing the multiplication piece. I have a lot already written down. You're going to need to pause this at some point to make sure it all gets written down. But in order for me to make it under a 15-minute video, I need to keep moving. So how do I factor a trinomial? Well, I want to do a quick review. If we look at our review here, we have two binomials and we want to change subtraction to addition or add the opposite. We go ahead and we multiply. And again, this is a review. X times everything in the other set of parentheses is x squared plus negative 6x. Now we have to go the opposite, or take our 4 times everything, 4x, and negative 24. And so what you see when we add this here are like terms. You get x squared plus negative 2x plus negative 24. And so what I want you to think about and why I did this review is because we are now starting with our trinomial. Right here, we're going to start with our trinomial and we're going to work backwards. We're going to undo it, we're going to factor it, and we're going to get two binomials that we're multiplying by. So we're starting with the trinomial. I want us to know that a trinomial is written as that ax squared plus bx plus c. Looking at example 1 here, we're going to go through each of the steps. We're always going to ask ourselves first, do I have a greatest common factor? And I don't in this one. Nothing can be divided out. Let's go to step 2. Step 2 says we're going to take a times c. Well, in this example, a is really the number 1. And so 1 times c, a times c, 1 times 15. So a times c, a is 1, 15 is c. We know we get the number 15 there. Okay. So now step 3 is we're going to list factors of 15. So we know 1 times 15. Factors means multiplying. 1 times 15 gets me 15. I know 3 times 5 gets me 15. But this one is the one we sometimes forget. A negative 1 times a negative 15 will get me a positive 15. And a negative 3 times a negative 5 will get me a positive 15. So I listed my factors. That was step 3. Step 4 is which factors give you the sum equal to b. Which of these, if I add them up, is going to give me b? Well, we got to look and see what b is. B is 8. Does 1 plus 15 get me 8? No, it gets you 16. Does 3 plus 5 get you 8? Yes. I'm going to check them all though. Negative 1 and negative 15, that's negative 16. And negative 3 and negative 5 is a negative 8 if we're adding. So if we look and see which one actually for step 4 gets us the B, it's 3 and 5. 3 and 5. So for step 5, I'm going to rewrite with the new factors. Instead of writing 8x, I'm actually going to write, I'm not changing the value of the problem, 3x plus 5x. Because that does equal 8x. Remember, we are going backwards. We are going backwards. And once we rewrite that, same problem, haven't done anything different, we're going to go through something called the grouping method. And so we are always just going to group the first terms and the last two terms. And I can tell you, it didn't matter where I put the 3x or the 5x. Okay. What is a common factor out of this first group? What do they both have in common? They both have an x. So I'm going to take an x out. And what am I left with? I'm left with x plus 3. Let's look at my second group. Bring down my plus sign. What do they both have in common? They both have a 5 in common. So we're going to divide out by 5. And what are we left with? X plus 3. And what you notice over here is I said the parentheses have to be the same. Are my parentheses the same? Yes, they are. So we can write our final answer for this one completely factored as x plus 5. I took my x and my plus 5, and I am multiplying it by x plus 3. And you're done. The reason that we don't have to put both x plus 3's is because that x and the 5 are both being multiplied by the exact same thing. Again, I know these are a lot of steps to go through. You're going to want to make sure that you go through those every single time. And let's go ahead and look at our next example. Feel free to pause if you need to. I'm going to go ahead. I have no subtraction. I'm going to add a 1 in. So we are going to look at A times C. 1 times 12 is 12. We want to list our factors of 12. So I know 1 and 12, 1 times 12. I always go in order. Start with your 1. We know a -1 and a -12. Let's go to 2. Does 2 work? Yes. 2 and 6 and -2 and -6 because a negative times a negative is a positive. 3 and 4 and a -3 and a -4. And we went from the 3 to the 4, so we know that that is it. We want to see which of those equals B. Well, B here is 7. So which of these adds up to a positive 7? 3 plus 4 gives you positive 7. So we're going to go into our equation and rewrite it. 1x squared plus 3x plus 4x. Again, I'm not changing the value of the problem. Instead of writing 7x, I'm writing 3x plus 4x. It still means 7x. I'm going to go ahead and look at grouping these. What does the first term have in common? What can we divide out or factor out? An x. And what am I left with? X plus 3. Let's look at my second term here, or my second binomial. What can divide out of here? The number 4, so we'll put a plus 4. And we have x plus 3. And again, we are looking to make sure that those parentheses are the exact same. Because they are the exact same, we can write our final answer as x plus 4. And x plus 4 was, both of those were being multiplied by x plus 3. And we are done. Now we could do the distributive property and see if we get this trinomial if you wanted to check your work. Let's go ahead and look at the next example. Example 3. I want to go ahead and change this to add a negative. And I think on the last example I totally skipped step 1. Do I have a greatest common factor even before I begin? And the answer was no, and I don't have one here either. Nothing can divide out. Let's go ahead and multiply our A and our C. A is 1, C is 42. So 1 times 42 we know is just 42. So as we go through our factors here, we know 1 and 42, but also a -1 and a -42. We know 2 and 21, -2, -21. 3 and 14, -3, -14. You can see I'm testing all of them. 4 does not work. 5 does not work. 6 and 7, and a -6 and a -7. And we want to ask ourselves, which one gives me this B, which is -13? Well, it's going to be that -6 plus -7. Let's go ahead and substitute that in. And when I substitute it in, I have my x squared plus -6x plus -7x and plus 42. Let's go ahead and we need to do our grouping. I'm going through those steps each time. I hope you are going to put those steps on like a sticky note or a note card and go through each one every time. As I group, what is a common factor here I can divide out is just x. And so I have x plus -6. Plus a common factor for the last set of parentheses here. Ooh, let's take a look at it. What would you divide out here? I see I want to divide out a 7, but we really want to take the negative with it because -7 divided by -7 is going to give you that positive 1x there. Plus the 42 divided by -7 is going to give you a -6. And remember, even when it comes to our signs, we want these parentheses identical. So our final answer, we'll take our x plus -7 times x plus -6. So to factor this trinomial, this is what we get. I'm going to start you on the next one, but I'm going to have you finish it and we'll discuss s. Again, change this to plus a negative. A times C here is going to get you a -40. There is no common factor either. I skipped step 1 again. I kind of get in the habit of that on accident because I just see it and I forget to say it. So no greatest common factor. -40. On this one, -1 and +40 get me a -40. But the 1 could be positive and the 40 could be negative. So this is a new example of going through and finding our factors that get us -40. 2 works, so -2 and +20. Or the 2 could be positive and the 20 could be negative. 3 doesn't work, but we know 4 and 10. So -4, +10, or +4, -10. And last but not least, we could have a 5 also works. A -5 and 8, or a +5 and a -8. And the steps are still the same. What is going to get you this +3? Literally type them in the calculator if you need to. -1 plus 40, that doesn't get you +3. Nor does this, nor does this, nor does this. Neither one of these do either. We want a +3, so it's going to be our -5 and our +8. So when we plug that back in, we're going to have p squared plus -5p plus 8p plus -40. Oh, I should have my -40 in black. Sorry, I keep my colors the same. You finish it from here, do the grouping method, and we'll check our answers. That's all I've got. Have a good one.